Brought to you by Miller Lite and Luther Auto. And now, to kick off your NFL weekend, this is Vikings Live.
Just got a lot of work to do, and we'll keep grinding here until we get this thing going the right way.
You've got to come with that mentality every week. You know that it's a new game plan, and shoot, we're going to just go try to get the win.
This is National Football League, and you have to go into every week preparing to play your best football. No matter what record you're going up against, you're going to get everyone's best foot forward that Sunday.
Well, the Vikings get one more game before the bye week, hosting the Falcons on Sunday, and we're here to start off your football weekend early on Fox 9 with the one and only Vikings Live. Thank you for joining us this evening, along with Ron Johnson and Courtney Cronin over at TCO Performance Center. I'm Hobie Artigue, and you too, the Vikings did almost everything right in Seattle, but just couldn't top the Seahawks in the end. At this point, what would you say is just holding this team back from getting into the win column?
Winning. I mean, if you look at it like time of possession, 39-20, first downs. I mean, all the necessary things, third down even, all the necessary things that they needed to do. That's what is confusing to me is they did everything they needed to win. But that 1 minute and 53 seconds of just meltdown, I mean, we can't blame it all on Kirk, but that's what can't happen anymore. That 1 minute and 50, you take that out, they blow the Seahawks out.
Yeah, you can't blame it solely too on Dalvin Cook leaving the game with an injury. I mean, you cannot fall apart every time your best playmaker goes off the field. And I think that in that third quarter they got away from what they were doing so well in the first half of that game. I mean, of course, they weren't going to be able to limit Russell Wilson to 3 possessions in the second half the way that they were able to pretty much the first half. They were going to have to adjust, but it kind of felt like they got away from what was working so well for them early on in what I would say was the best first half that they've played this season. Now, the hot topic is always pass protection for this team, right? And they don't really have a great drop-back passing attack because of some of the issues that they had up front. Maybe we see a change with that at some point soon. Gary Kubiak hinted that Ezra Cleveland is kind of on the verge of maybe getting a job as a starter with the Vikings offensive line, but it's hard, I think, Hobie, to measure marginal improvement throughout the season. I mean, we hear coaches say it every week that they're seeing this team improve, and obviously they're seeing it in practice, where honestly it really counts on the way to game day. But when you have a defense that's ravaged by injuries and such a young crop of cornerbacks that has had a new group of starters every single week this season, weeks 1 through 5, like that's hard to find the improvement and be able to see that tangibly go from 1 week to the next. The one question I get about this team, like, can they still make the playoffs? 2.7% chance, because out of the 360 teams that went to the playoffs since the NFL went to that 12-team format in 1990, 2.7 of those teams started 1-4. So
you're saying there's a chance?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance, and I mean, honestly, Atlanta's a winnable game. This is the one weekend to turn this thing around.
And the Vikings also have right now the best running back in the NFL, but he is sidelined at practice for now. Dalvin Cook missing a second straight day with that groin injury he suffered in Seattle. We've talked about his contributions pretty much constantly on this show and on Sunday mornings. If he doesn't go this Sunday, Courtney, just how big of an absence will that be for this offense?
Well, it's certainly an absence, and I know that the drop-off from Dalvin Cook to Alexander Mattison, obviously there's something there. I know the Vikings like Mattison as a backup because they don't have to change their approach necessarily offensively. Alexander Mattison can handle a Cook workload. But Dalvin's a dynamic player. Dalvin is a special player. That's why you extended him on a 5-year contract deal and gave him as much money as you did. So certainly they'll miss him. I mean, he's had a rushing touchdown in every game this season. 16 of his last 19 games, he's had a rushing touchdown. He sparks this offense. You saw just how much they missed him in that third quarter when he went out with injury. So I would anticipate, though, given like what the injury is, give him some time to be on ice for the next 2 weeks because you really need him the second half of the season.
Also, Ron, if Dalvin is the chef, the Vikings have a pretty good sous chef in Alexander Mattison. He went for 100-plus yards in Seattle last week, now could be getting his first start ever if Cook doesn't play on Sunday. What's he in store for come that start if he does get the nod in Atlanta, Ron?
Well, the Falcons, we know that the D tackles are pretty big, and so he's going to have to look for that outside zone run, the stuff the Vikings were great at, which is going outside to the tackles, going outside to Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph. C.J. Ham is a lead blocker, we know, so he has to be allowed to read those reads. But he's more like a charcoal grill when Dalvin Cook is propane. Dalvin Cook can get himself going pretty quick. Alexander Mattison, you kind of got to get him lathered up, get him going. So he might be a 20-plus, 25 carry back, as Courtney alluded to. He can carry the load, but honestly, I want to see Irv Smith in the passing game more. What we saw early on in Seattle showed that he can do it. They need to get him involved even more, because now what that does is that forces teams to maybe go nickel, and then you go back to running the ball with Irv blocking a smaller guy like a DB versus an outside linebacker.
Speaking of, let's stick with the food terms. Kirk Cousins pretty much had a buffet of options to throw to in the passing game last week in Seattle. It was screens, tight ends, 8 different Vikings had a catch. Guys, is this the expectation for that to continue, especially facing another pass defense in Atlanta that's really struggling at this point?
Yeah, Atlanta 31st in passing yards allowed, 31st in passing touchdowns given up this year. Absolutely anticipate this being a really pass-heavy game in spite of how good the Vikings rushing attack has been. But I think, Kobe, you bring up that spreading the wealth type of analogy here with this offense. That first drive in Seattle is a microcosm of how this offense should function. Dalvin Cook, 5 carries, Kirk Cousins, 7 passing attempts, and the screen game, it exists. Like, it exists. It is a real thing. You can throw passes to running backs. I didn't know if that was going to happen that much this year, but I think that that's their bread and butter. That's what they've got to do to be able to get things going on offense.
Yeah, and then when you look at the screen, I'm glad she brought that up. The passing offense is extremely dangerous with the screen game. And honestly, it's a copycat NFL. Look at how the Saints, look at how they get Alvin Kamara involved. Look at the Chiefs, how they get Allaire involved. You have to do those same things. I loved when I saw like BB chip a guy and run to the flat. I love seeing Adam Thielen go in motion and run a screen the other way. That's the kind of things Kubiak has to continue to do for this offense to thrive in the passing game, because then the defensive line can't just figure it out. Even though some passes look like screen and they're actually passes because Drew Samia is just letting the guy go by. So use that. Run more screens to the side. Maybe the guy will slow down a little bit next time.
Keep him honest a little bit. Well, times are tough for the Vikings as of late, but the Falcons have had an even rougher go of it, and being winless is just one of the many reasons. Dawn Mitchell joins us with more now on that. Hey, Dawn.
Yeah, hi, Hobie. It's been a week for sure, and it doesn't get much rougher than this. In addition to dropping to 0-5, the Falcons fired their head coach, their GM, and their special teams coach, and still the week was far from over. Today, they shut down their facilities.
Fake to him, wide open, touchdown Panthers.
Getting beat by Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers was just the beginning of a tough week. Today, the Falcons shut down their facilities after a second member of the organization tested positive for COVID-19. Sources say it was an assistant coach, not a player. But on Tuesday, rookie defensive lineman Marlon Davidson tested positive and was placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. Now, the league takes this on a case-by-case basis, so as of right now, the game is still a go.
It doesn't affect us at all right now. We'll see what happens. But for us, it's just continue to prepare for the game just like we would any other week, and we'll figure it out as we go.
We all understand that our routines and our schedules could be interrupted throughout the course of this year. It's just part of life, so you kind of deal with it, But and then I think the other thing is we all know each other in this league, so we all have friends, coaches on other teams, and when you hear something, first thing you think about is, everybody okay? And
between the loss to the Panthers and today's COVID shutdown, things are far from okay football-wise for the Falcons. They fired head coach Dan Quinn, general manager Thomas Dimitroff, and their special teams coach, while Raheem Morris was elevated to interim head coach. And he's been a head coach before in Tampa Bay. So the Vikings know this. They will be a team motivated to come at them hard on Sunday.
We're going to get Atlanta's best effort. There's no doubt about that. The players are not going to say, woe is me, and feel sorry about themselves. They're going to try to prove that they're still a good football team.
You got to tell the guys, hey, we're going to get their best effort on Sunday. Hey, we know that they're a good, talented football team, and we've got to go out and we've got to play our best in order to win.
Patterson and Zimmer know this from examples in their life because they're both on staffs in the past that had their coach fired, and it did indeed fuel them to go on to win, and they did win. So the Vikings do have to do all they can to make sure Atlanta doesn't bite them. And at 1-4, we all know they can ill afford to do that. Hobie.
All right, Dawn, thank you. The Falcons always in games until the end, going 0-5 to start off their season. As Dawn just mentioned, the head coach got fired. They've melted down in games. Both of you, your thoughts on this winless team coming to town on Sunday?
Better than their record indicates, probably.
Yeah,
I mean, you and I are laughing off air just about the special teams play that is going to be seared into our minds for the rest of this season. That I think it's a very elementary rule that you don't have to wait until 10 yards, the ball crosses 10 yards to get it. I don't know. That was a week one thing, but I'm still talking about it a month later. It shows you how nuts that was.
Yep, there it is.
I mean, they're good. They're good offense. I just think, honestly, there are a lot of similarities here in the way that the Vikings have, gotten out to leads and not been able to sustain those leads. The same type of thing that's happened with the Falcons offensively and really kind of the crux of what their defense, some of those issues that they've had this year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when you look at the turnover, they're +1 in turnovers and still can't win games. And so that's another weird stat that it's like you look at anybody. The Vikings are 1-4 and they're minus turnover, -5, I think. So when you look at that, it's just bad timing, bad plays, bad situations, comeback after comeback. And it's like, here we go again. But the one thing about the Falcons-Vikings, you can't let the Falcons have one inkling of hope. Crush it early, and then they won't even want to play anymore.
All right, Ron, as a player, how much does a situation like this with the coach getting fired, the GM getting fired, how much does that light a fire under players to kind of get back into the win column for the first time this season?
Well, a lot, because the coach is going to have kind of you're playing with house money. There's nothing that he knows. He's either fired or he's working for his job. So correct. So he's going to throw everything at him. He's going to do a lot of what we saw in Tampa, which is that Tampa 2. He's going to try to help his DBs out, which maybe Dan Quinn didn't. When he took over for defensive coordinator, as I said before, he went 6-2. Dan Quinn was 1-7 last year. So I think the players are going to have a new energy because it's a new voice in the building.
Also, Courtney, looking at their weapons, Julio Jones, he didn't practice yet again today, but Matt Ryan, top 5 in the NFL for passing yards. Todd Gurley, probably his best game as a Falcon last week. They have talent, so I don't think anyone's denying that. What are they capable of come game day on Sunday?
Well, the problem is they're not scoring enough points. You got to be better than in the low 20s to be able to sustain a good offensive attack in this NFL. And I think you're right. They do have good weapons. Todd Gurley is a terrific back. He had his longest touchdown run last week against Carolina. Really was the only highlight they had offensively. Longest touchdown run for him since 2017. But they're 21st in scoring, 11th in total yards, tied for 16th in yards per play. I mean, those are just not great numbers to boast here. But the Vikings know that they anticipate a very heavy passing attack because that's just the way that Atlanta's been able to kind of stay in games here. And I think there are some similarities just with the way that they set things up offensively that you could look at the Vikings as well and say, yeah, they're two very evenly matched offenses in a way going up against each other this week.
All right, still to come, the Vikings needed big contributions on defense, and they're getting a huge one from Eric Wilson just all over the field. Paul Allen catches up with the Vikings linebacker in the player spotlight coming up next from Vikings Live.
You're watching Vikings Live. Brought to you by Miller Lite and Luther Auto.
Well, the Vikings front seven on defense got decimated in the offseason with departures and also with injuries. They needed players to step up, and the biggest leap we've seen this season, it has to be from Eric Wilson. Paul Allen has more with the Vikings linebacker in this week's Player Spotlight.
Eric Wilson, linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings. Hobie is our Miller Lite Player Spotlight guest, 4th year from Cincinnati, undrafted in 2017, and you picked off Russell Wilson. Now, you didn't win the game, I know.
Yeah.
But you picked off Russell Wilson. I mean, see, that's still kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. It was a big play, especially in that moment of the game for my team to make. And yeah, it's awesome to to get a pick versus anybody. But Russell's a really great player, so it's awesome to get one on him.
Eric, are you saving these interception balls?
I am.
Yes.
I actually do. I have I have my first one against Phillip Rivers.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I just actually saw the one from Russell in my locker. So yeah.
Well, that's good because I mean Rivers and Wilson, HOF. I mean, you've done some damage against Trubisky during your career, but this is Rivers and Wilson. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Now, Eric Wilson is and always has been a playmaker despite limited reps on defense. Rookie year, forced fumble on a punt against Cincinnati, 2018. Only 336 defensive snaps the entire year. Couple of sacks, 4 TFLs. Last year, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery. This year, playing the most he's ever played. Couple of sacks, 4 TFL, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Is it impossible to answer this question? Despite limited opportunity all the way back to your rookie year, you've done good things and big things. Is there an answer?
I'd like to say that I have, yeah, and I agree. You know, it's awesome to be on the field and to, you know, get that opportunity to just play ball, honestly, and just to be out there and do my job and to make the most out of the opportunity when, you know, it comes my way. That's what we emphasize a lot is like do your job so someone else next to you can do their job, and when the ball comes your way, just make the play.
And the guy next to you, Eric Kendricks, makes a lot of plays, all pro. So, like, if you, through your career, Eric, when you watch Eric Kendricks, what are some things he does you strive to get better at?
You know, I think one thing is he just has a knack for the ball, honestly, in the run game and in the pass game, regardless of where it's at. He knows where it's at, and he goes to it, and he makes the play. He makes some great tackles and some run fits where you would have thought, like, man, like, how did he see that? But he gets there, and he makes the play, and he really comes with some oomph on his tackles. So that's definitely something to admire.
What's it like having a week where you play Russell Wilson, who moves around with that big arm, might be an MVP? Then you go to Matt Ryan, who's a very accomplished quarterback, but he doesn't move. I mean, like, what's that like?
Yeah, you know, Matt Ryan has won an MVP, so he definitely has the talent and the wit to play the position at a high level. So, you know, they are different, I guess, quarterback types, but, you know, he still can throw the ball pretty well. So you have to be on your P's and Q's there, and, you know, he does. I guess they don't scramble the same, but he will get out of the pocket. So we still have to be aware of him and, you know, ready to defend.
So now it's been 4 years for you with Mike Zimmer, and whether you're 1-4 or 4-1, Mike can be a little crotchety. So what's the worst, and for what reason, Zimmer has ever yelled at you?
The worst? Actually, I think maybe last year or 2 years ago, something happened, and I tackled the guy on their sideline, and I remember his towel was like wrapped around my arm, and so I realized it, and I threw the towel back to their sideline, and I guess the ref thought it was like unsportsmanlike. He threw a flag for me, and he's like, what the did you say to him? Like, what did you say? I was like, I didn't say anything, coach. Like, I just threw back his towel. That was on me. Like, after I got the tack, he was just like,
yeah, he definitely can have the moody gene. All right, 30 seconds to close. Dalvin Cook, you and Dalvin, open field, one-on-one. What happens?
You know, I think that he might try to put a move on me, but I think that I get him down. Hey, he's a great player, but yeah. I'm going to get him down.
And with opportunity, you're becoming a great player. Congratulations on the personal success this year. Hopefully you guys win the rest of your games. It was my pleasure being with you, and good luck against Atlanta, okay?
Thank you. Skol.
Skol, yes, sir. Get Skol on a roll. Eric Wilson, Hobie, and that is the Miller Lite Player Spotlight.
Thank you, PA. Eric Wilson, clearly an animated person, and he can draw up some pretty good stats, too. He's been outstanding. He's top 3 on the team in many categories, leads the team with his 2 interceptions, tied for first in tackles for loss. He's just been all over the place at a time when this defense needs some playmakers. Well, when we return, we give you our Vikings keys to victory as they get ready to host Atlanta on Sunday. And PA, He'll give you his bird's eye view. That's coming up right after the break on Vikings Live.
Welcome back to Vikings Live. Brought to you by Miller Lite and Luther Auto.
Well, the Vikings get one more game before the bye week, and for more on how they can leave US Bank Stadium with a win, Paul Allen has more in his Word's Eye View.
My man, Hobie, thank you. Word's Eye View for this week is there's no disputing, despite losing 2 of the last 3 games, the Minnesota Vikings have shown dramatic improvement. Should have beaten Seattle, but didn't. Now we move on. So what do you do to get Skull on a roll? First, you don't lose to a winless team. You beat these birds, a team that has faced massive distraction this weekend. Secondly, after beating said birds, you relax on the bye week. And thirdly, you come off said respite and you beat the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. And the improvement continues, Hobie, and Skull gets on a roll. Back to you.
Thanks, PA. And if you wonder why things have been tough for the Vikings, well, just look at who they've played. The NFL on Fox tweeted this out yesterday. And of the 4 undefeated teams left in the NFL, the Vikings have played 3 of them in their first 5 games. Well, this weekend, it's going from undefeated teams to the completely opposite end of the spectrum against a team that is winless. Time now for our Vikings keys to victory. Ron and Courtney, what do you need to see from this Vikings team before they take that bye-week break?
Well, we've said it this entire show. Think about all the distractions that the Falcons have dealt with this week, from a COVID scare to brand new coaching staff. Be prepared for anything. Think about it this way. What do they have to lose? It's always those teams that you should fear the most. And I asked Marwan Malouf, the Vikings special teams coordinator, about this, thinking, okay, you have 5 weeks of tape on this team. Do you really anticipate them to change all that much? But that's the message that he's sending to his players. Be aware of the fakes. Be aware of different formations, because teams like this, when there's been so many widespread changes across the staff, and you have guys who want to win for these guys to keep, potentially for someone like Raheem Morris to be able to retain that job, remove the interim tag, they want to play hard for them. So they're going to try to pull out all the stops. Be prepared for it. Be ready.
I'd say just do what you did last week, but win. Take that minute 53 out. But defensively, if you look at the DBs, cover 2 clearly works for them. Cover 4 is a good coverage for them as well. It keeps these young defensive backs from having to think too much and play too much man. Other than the last play of the game, that 2-man kind of botched by Cam Dantzler, they played a pretty decent game. So just do that. You're going to have some, even if Julio Jones doesn't go, you still have Calvin Ridley. So you have to keep these receivers in front of you, and that's the key.
All right, no Thursday night football for us to talk about. That's happening on Monday with the Bills and Chiefs at 4 o'clock right here on Fox 9. But the NLCS between the Braves and the Dodgers, that's coming up next right here on Fox 9. Thank you, as always, for joining us here on Vikings Live. For Ron, for Courtney, for Dawn, for PA, I'm Hobie. Have a great night.
Presented by Miller Lite, official beer sponsor of the Minnesota Vikings, celebrating 60 seasons. And by Luther, the best place to buy a car is also the best place to sell your car.